I just wanted to say, I'll kind of give an overview of what's happening in LA, but with two provisos. One is that I'm not sure I'm going to tell you anything that you don't already know, the media being what it is, and you guys I know are very informed about what's happening here. And then the other thing is I will end on a hopeful note, but I'm so sorry if the what I'm going to be sharing with you is far from hopeful for the most part. So I was concerned that maybe it's supposed to be uplifting, but it's not very uplifting right now here in the United States. So just to be totally upfront with you about that. I'm British. I'm an immigrant myself to this country. I'm a privileged immigrant. Obviously, I'm white, and I'm educated native English speaker. But I have to say, coming here through a H-1B1 visa process, then I volunteered at a volunteer center for years and was able to eventually get a green card, work-based green card through volunteering and working at this nonprofit is a very unusual pathway here. And it was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my entire life, including I have an undergraduate degree from Oxford University, and it was way harder than that. So I've always had enormous empathy for people who are struggling to come here, who are not in a privileged position. I didn't come here because of work. I couldn't get a job in England or Europe at the time, or I was being persecuted. I came for love, actually. So it's a whole other story, but very privileged position to be in. So I have enormous empathy, and I've always been a big supporter of especially those who are undocumented and asylum seekers who are coming here. So just to give you a little bit of background. So obviously we're part of the USCRI family, a refugee resettlement agency that does a lot of things. We're a little bit younger than USCRI. We're in our 111th year. And so you all know, because of the work you're already doing, that currently there are no humanitarian pathways into the United States. So, of course, this has drastically affected our refugee resettlement program. We have resettled one South African family who are actually mixed race. They weren't white. It's probably going to be the only mixed race, or they call themselves colored families that we will resettle. And we are getting quite a large number of Afghan special immigrant visa holders who are coming on their own steam from Pakistan, Afghanistan, wherever they're coming from. And then we are able to provide them services. So that's something. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the situation for some of our other humanitarian immigrant folks. Our asylum seekers who are what we call removal defense, the folks that have to defend their right not to be removed from the country, are having a particularly hard time, especially if they came around about the time in January, the Trump administration, as they took over. Folks who would have originally been interviewed by, Border Patrol agents and given a credible fear interview and then processed and then kind of released, are now being held indefinitely in detention camps around the country. Thousands of asylum seekers are being kept, even those who have been given some sort of withholding status. They are not being released, especially in places like Texas. So we actually my husband and I have welcomed one of our clients who's a refugee from Iran, who did not have any friends or family here. And he was looking at spending months, if not years, in Adelanto, north of here, and possibly being deported to a third country. We were able to sponsor him and bond him out. And so right now he's out, but his two friends that he came up with through South America and through Central America are still in indefinite detention. They went to Texas, bad mistake. He came to California, better option. But there's a price difference, right, when you're crossing. So that's the removal defense folks. Our asylum seekers who are Afghans, humanitarian parolees who've not yet been able to be awarded asylum for whatever reason, they seem to be being deliberately hunted and also detained indefinitely. One of our young Afghan women clients who she's in humanitarian parole status. She had a current employment authorization document. She was working. She has an apartment. She hadn't done anything wrong, no criminal wrongdoing at all. She was lured by ICE agents or whoever, federal agents, whoever they were, disguised one of them disguised as an electrician, went to a house where she formerly lived and wanted to, started questioning the folks who were still Afghan about who lived there. And then it turned out nobody had asked for an electrician. There were no electrical problems in the apartment building. And then a few days later, she got a call from the post office in Anaheim to say that she had a package from USCIS with her visa stuff or whatever, and to come to the post office to sign for it. So I'm sure most of you will know that the post office never calls individuals. You get a little postcard in the mail, and they would never call you to say, come and pick up a package. But of course, she didn't know that. And she and a friend went, and then she was swarmed by these plainclothes, masked, unidentified federal agents, several of them, this 20-something-year-old Afghan woman, and bundled into a white van and whisked away. And then she's now indefinitely detained in Adelanto. So we've been trying to work with her. So, so those are folks who are in status and are being treated like that. And you probably also heard that green card holders have also, in many cases, been similarly treated. And I've been hearing cases of people who've basically disappeared and their friends or family attorneys can't get hold of them. So they're being denied their due process and their rights. And then, of course, we come to the situation with our undocumented population, and you know about the roving raids in Los Angeles, Chicago, and other cities. Recently, I heard that the ICE people, or whoever they are, federal agents, were targeting a food bank in Hollywood last week. So we already have terrified populations of people who are not going to work, not sending their kids to school, and not able to work to feed themselves. So they are very dependent on food banks. So these really despicable people are now targeting food banks to see if they can, capture people who look Latino and look like they could be undocumented, right? So there's all the profiling, and that's impacting U.S. citizens. So ProPublica has recently announced that they've done an investigation into the number of U.S. citizens who are mainly Latino, who, again, look like they could be undocumented because of their ethnicity and their language and whatever else. And 170 U.S. citizens at least have been detained for more than a day without access to being able to communicate with a lawyer, some of them for longer than that. So basically nobody is safe in this country at the moment. And we, to be honest with you, we expect things just to get worse. Unfortunately, we're also facing with the government shutdown, and again, you're probably aware of this, the SNAP benefits, the food aid benefits, are going to come to an end as of November 1st. And even though actually the federal government, Department of Agriculture, has a contingency fund of several billions of dollars, which was specifically put aside to continue to provide food benefits, food aid for low-income people in the event of a government shutdown, that has been removed from the table because they're saying it's not an emergency, it's the fault of the Democrats. So we are actually, after I finish meeting with you all, I will be meeting with our staff to try to strategize about how we're going to support our refugees and other clients who are going to be badly impacted by this. So this is nationwide. It's quite serious. So that's the kind of the grim reality of what life is like in Los Angeles right now. Our staff are all trained not to let ICE in, and we go into lockdown. We have preschools, so we lock our preschools down. There has been, I think in Oregon, they did go into a preschool, these little kids, 2 to 5 years old, and they lurk outside them too. So we call our parents and warn them not to come, all the kind of stuff that's becoming the norm now. But I will say the good news, there's some reasons to be positive. And one of the reasons is what happened the weekend before last. And I know that I'm sure you followed the news and you know about the No Kings protests. There were 7 to 8 million people around the country who got out and protested against the anti-immigration policies of this disgusting administration, and all the other awful things that are happening here right now. The dismantling of what was once a great nation. We are really going to need a Make America Great Again party. I'm going to just call it the Really Make America Great Again party. So that's a huge reason to, and we just hope that momentum keeps going. We keep building the opposition and the vocal opposition, and people are standing up. When we stand up to them and band together, it does make a difference. They back down. So we're learning now. We're learning how to function in an increasing authoritarian country, which is fascinating. The other reason to be hopeful for is that the recent poll, I think it was a Pew Research poll, shows that the support for immigrants has gone up. It dropped last year by about 25%, which was very disheartening, but it's gone up. It's bounced back to what it was pre-Trump 2. So that's very encouraging. I think there is a lot of support, and many people are actually very horrified. People even who voted for Trump, I think, are quite horrified at what's happening. And I want to just compare California to where we were 30 years ago. And most of you are far too young to remember Proposition 187. I don't know, does anybody know anything about Proposition 187? It was, in California, we are able to vote laws to vote for laws if enough people approve, and they're called propositions. And Proposition 187 was at a time when California was still Republican, and it was very anti-immigrant, and the people of California actually voted to deny services, public health services except in emergencies, educational services to anybody who was not documented. So that would have meant children, undocumented, couldn't have gone to school, couldn't have gotten basic health services, couldn't have, enjoyed many of the other benefits that they do get living here. It would have totally excluded them from that. And it passed, horrifyingly enough. And it was eventually overturned as being unconstitutional. But I want to say, where are we, 30 years later, there is no way that something like that would pass in California. So there's been a huge sea change, and there's tremendous support for immigrants at this point, and I think we're seeing that around the country. So I believe we will prevail, and we're going to keep fighting and just educating people about the horrible, ghastly things and inhumane things that this administration is doing. And we appreciate your prayers. So I will end there.